once you've been to a Kinkaid Book Fair, everybody has a memory of going, right? They have a time that they sat on the beanbag with their friends. They have the time that they got coffee, the time that they a little bit of a connection or a book that they donated in honor of somebody. It is part of being at Kinkaid. It is part of all of those connections, and it all happens because Kinkaid has, put reading and literacy and learning in the center of that.
Hello, and welcome to The Perch, where we highlight authentic voices, expert insights, and meaningful conversation. The Perch brings the Kinkaid School's mission to life through stories of education, leadership, and community. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Perch. I'm Mike Maury, and on today's episode, we have the pleasure of meeting with the leadership team of the Kinkaid Library. We'll learn more about how they inspire our students to read, to learn, and to share their knowledge. Joining us is Lakeisha Branch, the director of the Upper School Library and Archives in the Katz Family Learning Commons. Lakeisha, welcome to the Perch.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Christina Bell, our library chair of the KM Middle School Library. Christina, good to see you.
Nice to see you too, Mike.
And Elizabeth Holloway, our lead librarian for the Giacomini Family Lower School Library.
It's a pleasure to be here, Mike.
So let's start with a look at the journey you three have had here at Kinkaid and really in your careers in education as a whole. The question we love to ask is, why did you choose this profession? Or maybe more important, why do you continue to come back every year to do what you do here at Kinkaid? Christine?
I've always wanted to be a librarian since I was a young child. And the reason why is I live next door to the town librarian. She was my neighbor. I lived in a small town, and I thought it was just the coolest thing going over to see my neighbor as the lead librarian at the public library. And I spent a lot of time in there hanging out with the graphic novels. It was Asterix at the time. I spent a lot of time there. And they had an adult section, and I'd spend some time there. But that's primarily what inspired me was her, and I guess looking up to her as a kid. And so for me now doing the library, I would love to inspire literacy in the kids in the middle school. I do love middle schoolers. I love seeing them grow and develop. There's so much change during that time period. And I think literacy, learning about themselves fits into that library. And it's the joy that I got from the libraries when I was a child.
Elizabeth, how about you?
Well, I have sort of an opposite beginning. I have my grandmother is a public librarian, and I in no way was interested in being a librarian. But I did come to education as a classroom teacher, and I loved working with young learners in literacy, and I worked very closely with the school librarian. And an opportunity came up, and I started working in the library, and I haven't looked back since. I went back and got my master's in library science, and now it's 27 years later. Each year is an amazing something unique happens. We always have in the lower school we have sort of the magic of watching kids grow up. We have them for 6 years. We have 2 librarians that are supporting our teachers and our parents, and we just get to watch them grow and develop as readers and learners. And I think the thing that keeps me coming back is that for each student, there's always sort of that moment of sort of ownership in their learning and their reading when they either think, oh, you can see that I can do this. This is my book. This is the thing I love. They find the humor. They are connected with the story or connected with the learning, or they have a favorite author or a favorite genre. Or when we see them really like take information away from what they've been studying, and it happens all the time. We just watch them grow sort of exponentially through the lower school.
Lakeisha, how about you in the upper school?
Sure. As an upper school librarian, it's amazing to see what the student will come in ninth grade, either knowing, not knowing, and then being able to watch them get involved in our using our college level resources, and I hope with that we are creating lifelong learners and readers. So that's what's always interesting to me. This is my eighth, or excuse me, 16th year as a librarian, my eighth year at Kinkaid. And it's always just so interesting to see students come in. I started out actually at a 4-year college, and then I went to a 2-year college, and then now I'm here working with high school students, and it's just always interesting to see their progression. I'd love to be able to introduce resources to students that I know that they will encounter when they get to college. It's always really, interesting to me, to know that we have these resources that a lot of high school kids just don't have access to, and that we can introduce these to our kids, at such an early age, so they may know what JSTOR is before they leave this place, and um, all of our other resources and databases that we have. So it's always really heartening to see that progression, but then also know that I am imparting these lifelong skills. Not only can they find the information, but know what the information is that they should be looking for.
I do want to jump back real quick. Elizabeth, you said favorite author,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking about across all three divisions, lower, middle, and upper school. Does anybody have a story or does anything come to mind when you think about a student and they have a favorite author?
I can think of lots of stories of our students who have favorite authors. I One of my favorite stories though is I had a student who wrote to their favorite author and had a response, and they sort of kept in touch, which is always that's sort of the sort of a pinnacle of a student making a connection with an author.
Christina, do you see that in middle school? Is there a moment you can remember or a particular student and an author where they're just gobbling book after book from that author, or they're asking you?
Well, Rick Riordan is the one that comes to mind. He's a big fantasy writer, and of course, we've had a lot of students read his work. We did have one student a number of years ago who created a whole club around Rick Riordan and the Percy Jackson series, and she would plan the club activity for after school for I think the entire year. She had all sorts of pillars that she built, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. But she was inspired by that author, which is very exciting. I do think, kids have favorite authors, but they also have favorite genres. I think that's what we see more in middle school, where they might be really interested in a particular type of writing. So whether it's realistic fiction or historical fiction or fantasy, of course, sports is a big one. And then not a genre, but a format. Graphic novels also have a lot of traction in the middle school. And we have a fairly large collection to serve those particular students.
Can you tell us a little bit more about actually what a graphic novel is?
Yeah, it's basically a longer comic strip, for lack of a better term, but where you might see comic books that we might have seen when we were younger. They're really these are longer, more I don't want to say more intense stories, but they dive into the storyline more thoroughly than you might in a short comic. But they really speak to the visual literacy that we see nowadays in literature. There's also the printing press. I think when we think about where printing has come over the years, even when I was a child, we didn't see the number of colors that could be printed as easy as they can today. And so the graphic novels have really burst on the scene. You just see this incredible art in them paired with text, and the kids do it. It takes a certain type of student and skill to be able to interpret these materials. These books often really resonate with students.
I think sometimes the graphic novels are misunderstood by adults who see them as only as comic or maybe sort of like lower art. But I think if adults would sit down and look over, there are some that are full of humor, but there are some that are incredibly sophisticated, and because of the format, there's some very high storytelling happening in graphic novels that our kids might not engage in other formats. I always say that we have some great nonfiction graphic novels, and we have one about the study of trees that has high circulation in our library. I can't think of another book about trees that has so much circulation, but because it's in that format, our kids are interested in connecting with that information.
So, Lakeisha, let's jump back into research, I guess, and resources in the upper school. So, tell us a little bit about something that our parents and our community may not know that we have at the Kinkaid Upper School Library that may not be somewhere else.
I would say our level of electronic resources. So when I say electronic resources, things that you may normally just see online. So like our databases, you can come into our library or even online and see databases where you'd have academic journal articles, newspaper articles, magazine articles that you could also go into at Rice or UT or SMU, U of H, and find those same articles and access to some of the same material. And we purchase, probably differently because we do have like a certain age group. It's not adults, but we do purchase things with in mind that our kids will be going on to higher level learning.
So, talking about digital resources, we have to throw out the two letters AI. How does AI play into the upper school library when we're talking about digital resources? How are kids engaging with external or internal resources? And maybe just your personal thoughts on how new technologies are going to affect your students in the future.
Well, one thing I will say is that Kincaid has really leaned into AI. Most of the time, we do it through Flint, which is the AI tool that we are using, and that our school is wanting the students to use. Um, some of our databases actually have an AI assistant, and we can determine if we want to turn those on and off. Uh, For the most part, what we are doing right now, we are leaving them on, but we are also instructing students on how to use them. But those are things because AI is rapidly changing how we receive information. We constantly take a look at how is this AI assistant in this particular database affecting this information that the students are receiving. So we constantly take a look at that. It's not something that, oh, okay, it's AI and that's it. And I also think because there is a policy in place, like how much AI our students can use on a certain assignment, then we just don't usually freely let our students just willy nilly use AI. So there has to be some parameters that they are using AI.
Yeah, in middle school, AI, to jump off of what you're saying, one thing that I think has been helpful for some students is learning how to do searches through AI. So, for example, developmentally, students have to be able to think of synonyms and like terms in order to find the information that they need. And, some students are more ready than others to do that. Sometimes using AI as a tool to generate some search terms or find out some basic information about what they're searching for, it gives them that starting point to jump into deeper research.
I'll just say that our libraries are very much student centered. Whenever I am making a decision or my team's making a decision about books to purchase, one thing I will say, how is this going to benefit the student? Or so it always goes back to the student and being very student centered. And I will say that I feel like, and maybe I'm biased, but I feel like the libraries are the heart of the community.
Lakeisha said, our libraries are the heart of our communities, and I think that that's sort of reflected in the way that our libraries are supported by the Kinkaid School. The fact that we have this amazing library faculty that is ready and willing to help our kids in every stage of their learning. The libraries are directly connected with our Kinkaid mission of like giving our students the best education and supporting all their talents and unique interests, and also placing, as we just happened in the CATS learning center, like in the center of those spaces, those schools, the libraries sort of center all of that.
We do have three pillars: literacy, information, and community. And I think all of us think about that when we're planning things for the library, purchasing things for the library, working with students. We have incredible programming. We have incredible resources, as Elizabeth said, and in many ways due to the fact that the school is so supportive of our libraries. And I think that's just adds to the richness of the school and our overall community for teachers, students, parents.
So, y'all have described a wonderful modern library system. And when I was younger, the library was sort of a quiet place. I could get away, I could find a book. There was one kind librarian behind the counter, always being quiet. But yet, that experience still sparked a love of reading all the way up until this day. I don't know what's changed from those old dusty days of me holding up in the library.
Well, I think firstly, our libraries, not one of our libraries are quiet in that very stoic way. I think there's a lot of dynamic things happening. I think if even in the study areas of upper school, you would see a lot of activity with our kids interacting with each other, just in the way our libraries are set up. They're set up for our students to interact with each other. They're set up for our students to interact with their faculty members or whoever they need to interact with. And I think that is set up for because most our learning is dynamic, and our spaces support that. So it's not quite the quiet space where and I think, with our littlest kids, we're singing, we're dancing. It's not quiet most of the time. We're excited about what we find. We're excited about what we're learning.
So, singing and dancing, I like that. That sounds a little bit more fun than my old library. So, even with all the electronic resources, different genres, different methods for consuming information, the good old book is still alive and well. And at Kinkaid, it is celebrated at an annual event we have called Book Fair. What's different about the Book Fair at Kinkaid? Why is it so special?
I did not realize, even though I'd been to Book Fair many, many times, how much support from the community we receive. I was really blown away by the number of chairs that we have. Not the three chairs, of course, that primarily organize the book fair, but all the other chairs underneath that organize a lot of what goes on and creates this incredible event for the school, which is, I think, a real signature event. It just brings everybody together from all the different divisions. We have these amazing authors, we have amazing books, there's the boutique. I mean, there's just so many things to offer. There's the meal that we have. And so I to me, it's about coming together. Obviously, there's the literacy component too, because I love books, I love reading. But for me, it's just the special aspect of everybody joining together, having fun together, and everybody is doing it.
And when you say chairs, you're talking about parents,
Yeah, the
right?
book fair chairs. So
Okay.
there are three wonderful parents who sign on to organize the book fair for 3 years. So we have a chair this year. Next year, the second in command will take over for her, and then the next year, the third in command will take over, and so on. And so it's really a 3 year commitment. It's really a substantial commitment for these parents. And then in addition to that, there's other parents who sign up to do things like inventory. They do a lot of the ordering, and of course, then there's folks who come and cook meals for the people who are working at the book fair. I mean, it's amazing, and actually, the food's really awesome too.
I will say my first memory or my first interaction with book fair, I was told when I started 8 years ago, "Oh, we have a book fair." And so when I show up on, like, family night, I was like, "Oh, this is a book fair." And then when I went back, I was like, "Oh, this is book fair. Okay, this is amazing." So it's completely different. This is not Scholastic, which no shade to Scholastic. It's wonderful book fair, but this is definitely, Kincaid tradition that is just a great part of this community.
Gonna add to what Christina and Lakeisha shared. Our book fair is obviously, if you've been to it, it's unique, right? It is because of the size. It is because of the support. But as Christina said, it's really about the connections that we're making. And as Christina, this is not the obvious part, right? But once you've been to a Kincaid book fair, everybody has a memory of going, right? They have a time that they sat on the beanbag with their friends. They have the time that they got coffee, the time that they a little bit of connection, or a book that they donated in honor of somebody. It is part of being at Kinkaid. It is part of all of those connections, and it all happens because Kinkaid has put reading and literacy and learning in the center of that.
We also can't forget Gerbil.
Uh, for our listeners, uh,
Gotta mention
they
Gerbil.
need to know what the word Gerbil means. Could you tell us what Gerbil?
Golden purple. It's the combination of gold and purple, and he's a purple bookworm.
But he's our very own book fair mascot.
Yes, he is.
Very few book fairs have their own mascot.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome.
Well, if I'm listening to the show, I want to know when the book fair is this year. And my little scratch notes say that book fair at the Kinkaid School this year is November 9th through the 11th. And if you want to take advantage of some of the wonderful community and specifically the food you've talked about, I think we have family night. Is that the Sunday, the first day of book fair?
Family night is on the 9th from 5 to 7. And then the 10th and the 11th, we have book fair all day.
Christina, thank you for joining us today.
And thank you for having me.
Elizabeth, great to have you on the show.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Lakeisha, as always, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So that will be a wrap for the Perch today. We will return again in 2 weeks with new conversations and stories about education, leadership, and community. Be sure to follow us on social media, check out Kinkaid's website, and read the Falcon Flyer for more on how Kinkaid supports our students and our community throughout the year. Thanks for joining us again on the Perch.